What's up, Vikings Nation? Buckle up because the last 72 hours have been absolutely wild in Minnesota, and I'm about to break down 5 developments that could completely change how we look at this 2025 season. We're talking about a fantasy football darling who's either gonna make or break your season, a potential safety upgrade that just fell into our lap for absolutely nothing, practice squad moves that might seem boring but could be huge, and some serious questions about whether we've got the right guys in the right spots. But here's what's got me fired up right now. While other franchises are making panic moves and scrambling to fix their mistakes, the Vikings are operating with this calculated precision that shows we know exactly what we're building toward. The contrast between our approach and what's happening around the league is night and day. First up, there's a receiver whose touchdown rate is so ridiculous, it's either gonna make him a Hall of Famer or create one of the biggest fantasy football disasters we've seen. I'm talking about a guy who scored on 14.3% of his career catches. That's better than Justin Jefferson's rate, folks. But there's a 3-game suspension hanging over his head that's got everyone wondering if he's worth the risk. Then we've got this safety situation that just got real interesting. A former first-round pick just got released by New England, and he might be the perfect replacement for a certain veteran who's been talking retirement. The kicker? We could probably get him for practically nothing, just like we did with a certain quarterback last year. Speaking of additions, we just signed a defensive back to the practice squad who's bounced around the league but might have exactly what Brian Flores is looking for. Sometimes these under-the-radar moves turn into gold, and this one's got that potential written all over it. But it's not all good news, is it? We got a cornerback situation that's honestly keeping me up at night. We're putting way too much faith in a guy who hasn't lived up to his draft pedigree and the depth behind him. Let's just say it's thinner than we'd like to admit. And finally, there's this whole perspective on where we stand as a franchise right now. Are we making the right moves? Are we addressing the right needs? Or are we one injury away from some serious problems? Here's what I need from you, Vikings fans. Are you feeling confident about how this roster is shaping up? Or do you think we're still missing some crucial pieces? Because what I'm about to reveal about our touchdown machine is going to show you just how high the stakes are this season. Drop a comment telling me your biggest concern heading into week 1. Smash that like button if you're ready for this deep dive. And let's get into the first story that's got fantasy experts either salivating or running for the hills. Alright, let's talk about the receiver who's got fantasy football managers either reaching for their wallets or running for the exits. I'm talking about Jordan Addison, and his 2025 outlook is the definition of boom or bust in the most terrifying way possible. Here's the number that's gonna blow your mind. Addison has found the end zone 19 times in just 2 NFL seasons. 19. While other receivers are out there catching 90 balls for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, Addison turned 63 catches into 9 scores last season. That's not normal football math, folks. You want to know how crazy this touchdown rate is? The dude scores on 14.3% of his career receptions. For perspective, that's better than Justin Jefferson's career mark of 8. 1%, and it's dancing with Randy Moss territory when he was wearing purple. We're either watching the early stages of a Hall of Fame career, or we're about to witness one of the most spectacular fantasy football collapses in recent memory. But here's where this gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean absolutely terrifying if you're counting on Addison for your fantasy team. His entire fantasy relevance lives and dies by those red zone looks. And that touchdown dependency is about as reliable as Minnesota weather in April. Last season, his average touchdown came from 24.6 yards out, the 8th highest mark among receivers with at least 10 scores. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We're asking rookie J.J. McCarthy to support not 1, but 2 deep ball threats in Jefferson and Addison. McCarthy came into the draft with legitimate question marks about his arm strength and processing speed under pressure. Sure, maybe he develops into something special, but betting your fantasy season on a rookie quarterback consistently hitting deep touchdown passes to 2 different receivers? That's like playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets loaded. And oh, by the way, Addison managed to get himself suspended for the first 3 games of 2025 for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. So while you're sweating through those crucial early September matchups, Addison will be watching from his couch. probably rethinking some life choices. This suspension has absolutely tanked his average draft position, which creates an opportunity if you're the gambling type. But do you really want to roster a guy you can't use for nearly 20% of the regular season? Here's what keeps me up at night about this situation. Kevin O'Connell's offense has been a fantasy gold mine, consistently ranking top 6 in passing yards and top 5 in passing touchdowns over the past 3 seasons. The system works, the talent is there, but we're introducing so many variables with McCarthy under center and Addison missing those crucial early games. The optimistic case is absolutely there. Don't get me wrong, Addison's efficiency metrics improved across the board from year 1 to year 2. His target share jumped to 20% last season and it climbed to 22.5% over the final 8 games. Plus, he showed he's not just a one quarterback wonder, putting up nearly identical numbers with both Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. But that floor? Man, the floor is absolutely terrifying. You're betting on touchdown regression not happening, on a rookie quarterback successfully feeding 2 elite receiving threats consistently, and on a player who's already shown he can find trouble off the field staying out of his own way. In a receiver class loaded with talent and question marks, Addison feels like the kind of player who will either single-handedly win you your league or have you stress eating pizza by week 6 while watching him put up 3 catches for 34 yards. So here's my question for you. Knowing everything we just discussed, would you take the risk on Addison at his current draft position? Are you the type of fantasy manager who likes to live dangerously, or do you prefer the boring but reliable option? Let me know in the comments, because what's coming next shows we might have a solution to one of our biggest defensive needs literally handed to us for free. Now let's talk about the move that could solve one of our biggest long-term questions without costing us a single draft pick or significant salary cap space. We're talking about Jabril Peppers, the former first-round pick who just got released by New England and might be exactly what we need for Harrison Smith's eventual replacement. Here's what makes this absolutely fascinating. Peppers was considered one of Pro Football Focus's best safeties at the position just last season. The Patriots signed him to a 3-year extension worth up to $25 million after 3 solid seasons in New England. So why did they just cut him loose? That's the million-dollar question that could work completely in our favor. The timing is perfect, and here's why. We all know Harrison Smith isn't going to play forever. We thought last season might have been it for him several times, but he keeps coming back for more. The question isn't if we need to find his replacement, it's when. And now a proven safety with championship level experience just fell into our lap. But here's the really smart part about this potential move. We could probably get Peppers on a deal similar to what we did with Daniel Jones last year. Remember that situation. The Giants were still on the hook for most of Jones's contract, so we signed him to the practice squad for just $127,000 and let New York pay the rest. If the Patriots have offset language in Peppers' contract, we could potentially get a former first-round safety for pennies on the dollar. Think about what Peppers brings to Brian Flores' system. This is a 30-year-old safety who still has the athleticism and instincts to play at a high level, but more importantly, he has the exact skill set that would thrive in Flores' complex defensive schemes. His best ability is dropping into coverage and reading quarterbacks' eyes, which is perfect when we want to get aggressive with 3 safety packages. The age factor isn't nearly as concerning as safety as it would be at other positions. If you've still got good range and sharp instincts, you can play safety well into your 30s without major concerns. Look at Harrison Smith. He's been doing it for years. Having Peppers would allow us to focus our draft resources and salary cap space on cornerback, which is honestly where we need the help more desperately. Here's the strategic genius of this potential move. It gives us options. If Peppers comes in and looks good, we can sign him to a moderate deal to pair with Josh Metellus and Theo Jackson. If it doesn't work out, or if he doesn't want to come to Minnesota, he could potentially help us earn a compensatory pick in the 2027 NFL draft when he signs elsewhere. The risk is minimal, the upside is significant, and it addresses a need we're going to have to face sooner rather than later. Plus, having that veteran presence and championship experience could be invaluable for a defense that's trying to take the next step under Flores' leadership. What I find most intriguing is how this fits our recent pattern of smart, low-risk acquisitions. We're not throwing huge contracts at aging veterans or trading away future assets for quick fixes. We're being opportunistic, we're being smart, and we're building depth in areas where we know we'll need it. The practice squad route worked perfectly with Daniel Jones, giving us a chance to evaluate him without major financial commitment while he got comfortable with our system. The same approach with Peppers makes all the sense in the world, especially when you consider that safety is a position where chemistry and communication are absolutely crucial. Even if Peppers doesn't pan out, the attempt costs us almost nothing. But if he does work out, we've potentially found Harrison Smith's replacement for a fraction of what it would cost to draft and develop a safety or sign one in free agency. So here's what I want to know from you. Would you be excited about adding Peppers to our safety rotation? Or do you think 30 is too old to be planning for the future? Is this the kind of low-risk, high-reward move you want to see more of? Drop your thoughts below, because what I'm about to tell you next shows we're not just looking at big names. We're also making the kind of under-the-radar moves that could pay huge dividends. Alright, let's shift gears and talk about the kind of move that doesn't make headlines but could end up being absolutely crucial to our success this season. Meet Kevon Wallace, the 28-year-old defensive back we just signed to our practice squad, and he might be exactly the type of player Brian Flores can turn into something special. Now, I know what you're thinking. Practice squad signings? Really? This is what we're getting excited about. But hear me out. Because Wallace's journey through the league tells a story that should have us paying attention. This is a former 4th-round pick by Philadelphia in 2020 out of Clemson, who's bounced around more teams than a journeyman pitcher, but sometimes that experience is exactly what you need. Here's Wallace's NFL tour so far. Started with the Eagles, got claimed by Arizona, then Tennessee, spent time with Seattle, caught on with the Giants, and now he's here with us. That's 6 organizations in 5 seasons, which either means he's got serious issues or he's been consistently good enough for teams to keep giving him chances. Given that he appeared in 9 games for Seattle last season with 15 tackles and a forced fumble, I'm leaning toward the latter. What makes this signing intriguing from a Vikings perspective is what Brian Flores does with versatile defensive backs. Wallace isn't just a safety. He's played multiple positions in the secondary throughout his career, and that flexibility is exactly what Flores loves to work with in his complex defensive schemes. When you're running as many different looks as Flores does, having guys who can play multiple spots without missing a beat is invaluable. The Clemson connection is worth noting too. That program has produced some seriously good defensive backs over the years, and the coaching and development they provide gives players a foundation that translates well to the NFL. Wallace might not have lived up to his 4th-round pedigree yet, but the raw skills and football IQ that got him drafted are still there. Here's what I find most encouraging. Wallace is 28 years old, which means he's entering what should be his prime years for a defensive back. He's got enough experience to understand different systems and concepts, but he's not so old that his physical skills have started declining. For a practice squad signing, that's exactly the profile you want. The timing of this move is interesting too. We signed him right as roster cuts were happening across the league, which suggests our coaching staff identified him as someone worth bringing in before other teams could scoop him up. That kind of proactive approach to practice squad signings usually means the coaches see something they can develop. From a depth perspective, this makes a lot of sense. Our secondary has some questions, especially at cornerback, and having someone like Wallace who can step in at multiple positions if needed gives us insurance we might desperately need during the season. Practice squad players can be elevated for games, and having that flexibility could be the difference between winning and losing close games. What's really smart about this signing is the financial commitment. There basically isn't one. Practice squad contracts are minimal, so if Wallace doesn't work out, we can move on without any salary cap consequences. But if he does develop into something useful, we've found valuable depth for practically nothing. The track record of teams finding contributors through practice squad signings is actually better than most people realize. Sometimes a player just needs the right system, the right coaching, or the right opportunity to show what he can do. With Flores' ability to maximize defensive talent and our need for secondary depth, Wallace could be one of those success stories. I also like the fact that we're being thorough in our approach to roster building. This isn't just about the big name signings and draft picks. It's about finding value wherever it exists and giving our coaching staff as many options as possible to work with. So here's my question for you. Do you trust Brian Flores to turn a journeyman defensive back into a contributor, or do you think practice squad signings are just roster filler that don't really matter? Have you seen enough from our defensive coordinator to believe he can find gold in unexpected places? Let me know what you think, because what's coming next is going to address one of our biggest concerns, and it's not pretty. Now we need to have a serious conversation about the elephant in the room, the cornerback situation that's honestly keeping me up at night. We're talking about Jeff Okudah and the massive gamble we're taking by giving him such a significant role in our defense. Here's the harsh reality. We've handed our CB3 position to a guy who hasn't earned it yet, and the numbers are absolutely terrifying. According to Pro Football Focus, Okudah has been targeted 181 times in his career, allowing 120 receptions for 1,126 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's a passer rating against of 106.3, folks. He's literally never finished a season with a PFF grade above 60, which is still considered below average. General Manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah gave Okudah a 1-year deal worth $2.35 million. And sure, that's relatively cheap, but there's a reason it's cheap. This is a former 3rd overall pick from the 2020 draft, the same draft that gave us Justin Jefferson, and he's been nothing short of disappointing throughout his career. Let's talk about the injury history, because it's honestly scary. Soft tissue injuries limited him to 9 games as a rookie. He suffered an Achilles rupture in the first game of his second season, costing him the rest of the year. Last season, a hip injury kept him out of all but 6 games. For a position that requires explosion and change of direction, these aren't random bad luck injuries, they're a pattern. But here's what really concerns me. We're not just asking Okudah to be a depth piece. He's taken over Shaq Griffin's role, which accounted for 572 defensive snaps last season. That's half of all our defensive plays. We're giving major responsibility to a player who's never proven he can handle it at the NFL level. The depth behind him is even more concerning. Our only other option is rookie Dwight McGlothern, and Fabian Moreau is sitting on the practice squad. If Okudah gets hurt again, and his track record suggests that's likely, we're looking at a rookie or a practice squad player getting significant snaps in crucial situations. Now, I'll give credit where it's due. There are reasons for optimism. Alec Lewis from The Athletic pointed out that Okudah has specific skills that Brian Flores values. His physicality with press coverage at the line of scrimmage and his explosion to cover ground on shorter routes could work well in Flores' system. Plus, Justin Jefferson himself said during the offseason that Okudah is one of those annoying cornerbacks who knows how to be physical and disrupt routes without drawing flags. The athletic profile is undeniable. He was the 3rd overall pick for a reason. He's got ideal size of 6'1" and 205 pounds, plus the speed to match up with most receivers. Despite his size, he can flip his hips quickly and accelerate to stay with receivers trying to beat him deep. When he's healthy and engaged, those physical tools are legitimate. But here's the problem. Potential doesn't win games, and we're a team with serious playoff aspirations this season. Can we really afford to bet so heavily on a player who hasn't shown consistent ability to stay healthy or perform at a high level? The urgency to find additional help at cornerback should be through the roof, but it seems like we're content to roll with what we have. Okudah got the CB3 job in training camp without much competition, and we still don't know if that was a wise decision or a mistake waiting to happen. What worries me most is that this feels like we're hoping for the best rather than preparing for reality. Okudah's career has been defined by disappointment and injury, and now we're asking him to be a key contributor on a team that wants to make noise in the playoffs. That's a lot of pressure for a player who's never handled that level of responsibility successfully. The contract structure suggests even the front office isn't completely confident. 1 year, relatively low money, basically a prove-it deal. But if we're not confident enough to give him a longer contract, should we be confident enough to give him such an important role? So here's what I need to know from you. Are you buying into the Jeff Okudah redemption story, or do you think we're setting ourselves up for disaster at cornerback? Do you trust Brian Flores to get the best out of him, or should we be panicking about our secondary depth? Drop your honest thoughts below, because the final story I'm about to share puts our entire roster construction philosophy into perspective. All right, Vikings Nation, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture here. Because when you look at all these moves together, they tell a story about where we are as a franchise and where we're headed. We've got this interesting mix of calculated risks and potential home runs. But the question is, are we building smart, or are we just hoping everything breaks our way? Let's start with what's working. The practice squad signings, the opportunistic moves like potentially adding Jabril Peppers for basically nothing, the way we handled the Daniel Jones situation last year. These are signs of a front office that's thinking creatively and maximizing value wherever they can find it. We're not throwing massive contracts at aging veterans or mortgaging our future for quick fixes. But then you look at some of the bigger gambles we're taking and it gets concerning. Jordan Addison's suspension issues, Jeff Okuda's injury history and performance concerns, the fact that we're putting so much faith in unproven players in crucial positions. These aren't depth moves anymore. These are foundational pieces we're counting on. Here's what really stands out to me. We're operating like a team that believes in its coaching staff's ability to develop talent and maximize potential. Whether it's Brian Flores getting more out of defensive backs than their previous teams did, or Kevin O'Connell continuing to create an offensive system that makes players better than they were elsewhere, we're betting heavily on our coaches. And honestly, that might be the smartest bet we could make. Look at what Flores did with our defense last year, turning players like Byron Murphy Jr. and Harrison Smith into an elite safety tandem. Look at how O'Connell has developed Justin Jefferson into a superstar and got career years out of guys like TJ Hawkinson. When your coaching staff has that kind of track record, maybe you can take more risks on talent. The cornerback situation still bothers me though. We're basically hoping Jeff Okuda stays healthy and plays better than he ever has before while having minimal proven depth behind him. That's not developing talent. That's crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. For a team with legitimate playoff aspirations, that feels like a dangerous approach. What I find encouraging is how we're handling the quarterback situation. JJ McCarthy is our future, but we've surrounded him with veterans like Carson Wentz who can step in if needed. We're not throwing a rookie to the wolves without support, which shows we're learning from other teams' mistakes. The practice squad moves and potential additions like Peppers show we're thinking about 2026 and beyond, not just this season. That long-term vision is exactly what successful franchises do. They're always building for both now and the future simultaneously. But here's the reality check we all need. None of these moves matter if the core players don't perform. Jordan Addison has to stay out of trouble and continue his touchdown magic. Jeff Okuda has to prove he's more than just potential. The coaching staff has to continue developing players at an elite level. The margin for error feels smaller than it should be for a team with our expectations. We're counting on too many things breaking our way. Too many players exceeding their previous performance levels. Too many injury-prone guys staying healthy when they historically haven't. So where does that leave us as we head into the season? I think we're a smart organization making calculated risks based on our coaching staff's ability to maximize talent. But I also think we're one or two key injuries away from some serious problems, especially in the secondary. The optimistic view is that we're building a sustainable model, find value where others don't see it, develop players beyond their previous ceiling, and use creative roster management to stay competitive while maintaining financial flexibility. The pessimistic view is that we're gambling too much on unproven players in crucial positions. Here's what I believe. This approach will either validate our coaching staff as elite developers of talent, or it'll expose the limits of what even great coaches can do with flawed players. There's not much middle ground with the risks we're taking. As we stand on the edge of what could be a special season or a frustrating one, I keep coming back to this question. Do we have enough proven performers to complement the guys we're betting on, or are we asking too much from too many unproven players? What defines us as a franchise right now? Are we the smart team that finds value others miss, or are we the team that takes too many risks and pays for it when things go wrong? That's the story of our 2025 season, Vikings fans. Drop your thoughts on whether you think we're building smart or just getting lucky. Smash that like button if this breakdown helped you understand our roster better, and make sure you subscribe because the regular season is about to give us all the answers we're looking for. The transformation is real, the talent is there, but the questions are legitimate. Let's see which version of the Minnesota Vikings shows up when it matters most.